Hallo liebe Leser und Zuseher, wir, das DVD-Forum.at, sind hier am ersten Weekend of Horror in Wien. Hier bei mir zu Gast Oliver Robins. So, you were 10 years old when you worked on Poltergeist, 14 years, Poltergeist 2?
Yes.
Isn't it frightening as a child to shoot a shocker, a horror film?
You know, you think that, but when you're 10 years old, you accept everything around you. And when I was making Poltergeist, it felt like I was in summer camp. It was the best experience of my entire life. And we worked with such a great team. We had Frank Marshall, Steven Spielberg, and Toby Hooper and Kathleen Kennedy. And those guys just made it such a fun experience for me. And what people don't understand, when you make a movie, you shoot the entire film out of order. So you don't really know how it's going to be put together. Yeah. And all the special effects were being laid in afterwards. And we asked them, I said, the director, Toby, would say, "You're terrified." And we'd ask Toby, and I said, "Toby, what are we looking at on screen?" And he'd say, "We don't know yet, but Industrial Light and Magic's going to put it in, and we're going to wave, so they're waving sticks." So we just had to think of the scariest thing we could possibly think of. So we really didn't know what we were looking at. So we were really just drawing from the inside, and I had no idea what the film was really going to be like until I finally saw it. But when I saw it, I was completely terrified. I mean, I jumped at scenes that I was in that I knew what was going to happen just because of the way they assembled them.
Were you allowed to watch the film afterward?
Yes.
When it was completed, when you were 11 years old?
Yes, I saw the movie right after it was finished.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will ask, would you be scared? You know, you're so young, you're seeing a movie like that. And I really think it really depends on the kid. I've been exposed to a lot of movies and I love watching films. So Poltergeist really didn't scare me. And I told my parents, I want to see the film that I'm in. There's no way I'm going to wait to watch the movie. And my parents were very protective too. I know I didn't audition for a lot of films that were just too scary for me because I knew my psychology and that I would have been afraid to have been in them. But you know, for Poltergeist, you know, it was just it wasn't your traditional horror film. It was really had so much heart and passion and love in it, and it was really I would say a family movie in many ways, intertwined within all the horror.
Yeah, and you got to know Steven Spielberg?
Yes.
What's he like?
Oh, he's a fantastic guy, and he's a child at heart, and he's an amazing filmmaker. And I think everyone I went to film school at University of Southern California, which is in Los Angeles. And while I was making Poltergeist, Steven said to me, you know, you should make films, because I showed him my Super 8 movies. So he gave me a Super 8 camera, and I remember it was a Beaulieu 5008S. It was this great Super 8 camera, and he gave me advice, and he showed me how to make films. And then I said, I love making movies. What should I do? And he said, go to USC. So I went to USC Film School and I graduated there, and I began making movies. So yeah, he's a fantastic filmmaker, and he's made some of my favorite movies. Even though I'm in Poltergeist, I think it's still it's a pretty good film. You know, and Toby, I have to credit him. I mean, he really created a level of horror that, you know, really put that film where it is.
Yeah. What are your favorite movies from Spielberg?
From the Spielberg movies, I love all cinema, but I love Jaws. I mean, Jaws is just fantastic, and you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. So those are really my favorite movies he's ever made, too.
Cool, cool. I read you worked on Airplane 2 with William Shatner and Sonny Bono. Did you get to know them? Well,
I never met. I always wanted to. I wasn't on the set when William Shatner was there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, one day, if you're out there, William, I'd like to meet you. I've yet to meet him yet, but I was there when I had a couple scenes with Sonny Bono, and he was a fun guy too. He was great to work with, and he made it. You know, as a kid, you know, you're still a kid, and a lot of adults in the film industry forget that you're still a child. But he was a kid at heart too. He had fun with me, and he invited me out to his house, and we played tennis, and he was just a really great guy.
Yeah, cool. What about your current projects? You direct and write yourself. Let's talk about that.
I'm a writer-director. I've written like Hallmark Channel movies. I'm not sure if you get those out in Europe. I think one was shown in the UK, and I've directed a couple other films that have been in Europe. I'm currently working on this other, studio level project, which I can't really talk about right now. But I do have another movie that I made for no money. It's a lesson in ultra low budget filmmaking. If you have any filmmakers out there, we made it, I'd say, for around 1,500 euros, and I'm not kidding. It's 15.
Really?
Yeah, we made it. I shot it mostly myself. I had another DP there, and we basically had a very, very minimal crew. It was just me and the actors. And the storyline is I really wanted to make a film that I thought might be not the most popular, but I wanted to tell a story that was meaningful of the time. And it's called 29,000 Wishes, One Regret. And it's about this young couple living in Los Angeles, and they lose everything in the wake of the recession. They're like one of the many people in Americans that lost pretty much everything when the economy went south. So the wife is completely, totally depressed, and she doesn't know what to do with herself. So she gets this crazy idea one day that they should live the life they once had, because they're extremely spoiled, or they once were. They'll charge up their credit cards, and when they're done charging up their credit cards, end their lives. And the husband doesn't really want to go along with it, and she's gone in this deep depression, and you're wondering through the whole movie, while they have this wonderful time rekindling their relationship and they fall back in love, are they going to go through with it? And you can get the movie on Amazon right now, so if you want to rent it or buy it or download it, it's on Amazon.
Also das neue Projekt auf Amazon bestellen.
So.
Jetzt kurz schauen. So, why don't you write or direct any horror films? That's the genre you got famous.
Well, it's funny you mention that. I've written a couple horror movies, but I've yet to make them.
Yeah.
Hollywood is really tough to get things off the ground sometimes. You see movies in the theater that have basically been in the development process probably for years, and you really have to be passionate. So I've written a couple horror films, but I'm still trying to make them. So if there's any investors or producers out there that want to make horror films, I have a couple horror scripts that I want to do. I've mostly done comedies and family films too. And people, once you start doing something, they only think you can really do that one particular kind of genre. But I love horror, and I'd love to make a horror movie one day.
Yeah. What's your favorite horror movie besides Poltergeist?
It's only Poltergeist. No, I would say I like films that ring of authenticity, that are really true, that suspend disbelief. I would say The Exorcist. William Friedkin's job on that. And that was before we have CGI. I think there's a tendency today, if you can show everything with special effects, they do. And Exorcist was so terrifying. I just saw it a couple months ago, and I was still terrified of that movie. So I would say that is, my all-time, one of my favorite horror movies.
Have you ever seen Poltergeist 3?
No, I haven't. It's funny. People ask me that, and I haven't seen it yet, too. I want to see it, but I just haven't had the time. And if someone gets me a copy, I'll definitely watch it too. I just haven't seen it yet.